Beloved, June 2nd, 2018, in dreams, I saw how there were many groups climbing with big steps up the mountains. There were many around the world. Then I asked my companion, "Who are these?" And he answered me, "They are the understood. These are the ones who have heard the voice of the great I Am, and have put their hand to the plow, and have not hesitated to look back." Then he continued saying to me, "These do not care about their lives, and they do not care about their difficulties, because their desires and longings is to obey the great I Am." At that moment, my heart jumped with joy. It was such an immense joy that it is indescribable to know and see that this was happening worldwide. Then I also saw how they bravely made their way to each mountain, and each mountain was there welcoming them with the mercies that from God overflowed there. So then I saw some go down. There were several, but not in the amount of those that I saw go up. So I asked, "What about this?" And he answered, "Even there is a shaking. Even there in the mountains, there are people whose minds betray them and their memories overwhelm them, who live from the past as if wishing for the pots of Egypt, and their mind was not handed over to be God's possession, and the enemy of souls won the victory." So at that moment, I asked to go to them to explain where their uncontrolled behavior would take them. Then it was pointed out to me that each soul is being weighed, whether it acts out of impulse, out of fear, or out of real conviction. I was told that their own lives, not subject to God and to "it is written," will betray them, and nothing that is not a total surrender without reservation will save them. They were scheming and calculating. I was told their convenience without taking into account that they are being weighed and measured by the great I Am. No one that gave the measure will subsist, I was told. Every defect of character must be subdued, and all haughty eyes must be defeated. For he who weighs the hearts sees you as you are, and no one is exposed to his scrutiny. Resolved to live in holy piety, I was told, remembering that God gives each one the just that is needed in order to be refined, so that they may be your fellow servants in the heavenly homeland. Do not murmur, I was told, nor resist, because this is for the test of salvation, and whoever does not overcome it now and is burdensome, how can they survive in the final link? Beware of the yeast that infest your lives, he kept telling me, and to despise your brothers because my eyes is vigilant, says the Holy One of Israel. And what excuse will you put before the Eternal? Make sacrifices of justice and peace, so that your sacrifice before God is acceptable. Avoid strife, walk in meekness and thanksgiving, for your holy God knows what each of you needs for salvation. At that moment he paused and said, Psalms chapter 1. Many know this psalm. It is a psalm that gives much to understand. Let's read it and meditate on it with thanksgiving and with much meditation, so that we know what God wants to tell each one of us. Then at that moment he kept telling me, rebellion. Rebellion is not from God, and no one who practices it will be saved. At that moment, beloved brothers, I woke up thinking about all this, meditating on Psalm chapter 1, which is a psalm that for years, practicing with my children, we memorize it. And while I was meditating on this psalm, some verses came that was dictated to me, which I am going to tell you next. Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 9 to 11. Micah chapter 4, verse 9 to 10. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 8. Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 9. Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 3 to 5. Songs of Songs chapter 2, verse 12. Hosea chapter 4, verse 8. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8 to 9. Psalms chapter 2, verse 11 to 12. Exodus chapter 32, verse 8 to 9. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 7 to 14. Isaiah chapter 4, verse 2 to 6. Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 9 to 12. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9. 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 24 to 27. Colossians chapter 2, verse 8. Revelations chapter 9, verse 14 to 21. Revelations chapter 11, verse 1 to 2. And Revelations chapter 22, verse 6 to 8. I leave this with you, brothers. Meditate on these things. The Lord, who knows everything, who knows us even better than ourselves, is realizing many things regarding each one of us, not just those who are staying in the cities out of disobedience or for some reason of much heaviness, but rather that those of us who are coming out, who have been out for a long time, who are coming out these days, the Lord is weighing which is the reason we are doing it. May God grant the reason be because we really want to obey the great I Am. May God grant that each of us get right with God, because material preparation is very important. Going out to the field, having a small roof, the water, planting, all these things are extremely important, but even more important is the spiritual preparation of each one of us. May God grant that each one of us can really achieve it and reach to give the measure and way that God wants and desires from each one of us. May the Lord bless you all.